Of course, I have a written speech which I am supposed to read, but I always find myself digressing from my written speech, except to check when I've maybe left out some few important things I'm supposed to say. What I would really like to say today is, as a country, I feel very happy where we have reached. And as a group of civil society organizations, I think all of us have a lot to be proud about, because your contribution, तपाईहरुले हामीहरुले गरेको जुन चाहिँ आवाजको बुलन्दीले गरेरै अहिले जे पनि हाम्रो संविधानमा लेखिएको छ, जुन कुराले गरेर आज म परराष्ट्र मन्त्रीको रूपमा तपाईहरुको अगाडि खडा हुन सकेको छु, यो त्यही बेलादेखि नै यो रोपिएको सिड्स हो। आज मैले कहिले पनि आफ्नो लाइफमा सोचेको थिइनँ कि I will go into politics and I will become a minister. That's especially foreign minister. I used to think that's only for important men, not for women. But somehow we were able to achieve this, and I really thank all my sisters who persuaded me to go into politics. And it took some persuasion, let me tell you. I was very happy being a development worker and a social activist, and I knew how difficult politics is, and I really didn't want to come into politics. But everybody, like my sisters sitting here and there, all of them said, "Hoina hoina janu parcha, you know the issues, we are behind you, please go, please vocalize, please organize." र म मात्रै होइन, त्यो बेलामा माननीय सपना मल्लजी, now she's a judge in the Supreme Court, उहाँ पनि जानु हो। हामी दुई तीन जना यस्तै गरेर who are not in politics, we joined politics to make sure that यो संविधानमा हाम्रो rights ensure होस् भनेर। And we were very lucky. We got very good support from not only the women who were in politics, because they were also part of that journey, but from the men also. And thus we were able to write down a lot of laws that many countries are still talking about. And for that, I think Beijing was one of the key points in our lives which moved the agenda forward. For this, I would like to be thankful to everybody who participated in this journey. But like all our friends said, we still have a lot of challenges ahead of us. अब आउनेमा के गर्ने त? अब आउने 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, what are we going to do? What are our goals? What are the things that we need to look for? What are the things that we need to organize around? I think this is a time to reflect upon that and make sure that the world becomes a better place than it is. And like the speakers before me said, there are new challenges in front of us. War and conflict is a challenge. It's a very, very big challenge. And like we've seen now, we take a few steps in front, but then few steps behind. Yesterday, I was watching television, and I saw a large group of American women demonstrating outside in Washington, saying, "We are here, we want our rights, my body is my own." And I think, really, we really need to do that even now, even in a country which we think is so advanced. So the challenges are always going to be there. Misogyny has been around for centuries. We have only been around for 200 years, women have been raising their voice. So centuries of grooming versus 200 years and now 30 years of Beijing is still a challenge. We still have to knock down many, many barriers, still have to stand out for ourselves, still have to face new challenges. And one of the new challenges, besides the wars which are coming up, besides the very polarized geopolitics that we now face, is also the challenge that is posed by the digital world now. There are deep fakes, there's so much hatred on the internet, there's so many fake news. How are we going to challenge that? And not only as women, but even as families. And this is a challenge that before the UNGA, I participated in a meeting that was women foreign ministers. The foreign minister of Canada, she organized a meeting, and I was among the 15 foreign ministers who attended. By the way, there are 34 foreign women ministers in the world now, maybe 33, because I think Japan has changed a foreign minister. But the thing was, there were two issues that we raised. One was about public spaces in politics for women. Is it increasing? Is it decreasing? What do the wars mean for women in politics? What does cyber attacks mean for women in politics? These were some of the issues that we discussed. And we realized that many new regimes that we have to face, that we need to regulate around if women are going to come into politics in the future. And one was regulation about the digital space. And maybe it was because of realization like that, that we also have a digital compact now. And many leaders who spoke at the summit talked about mainframe regulations for the digital world. And in Nepal, I know a lot of you face that also. I have faced it a lot. And I have really had to look deep down inside me and bring up a lot of my strength to face that. And I know in the future, a lot of women will have to do it even more. So what do the social platforms have responsibility towards? Can anything be written on them? Can anything be portrayed on them and everybody laps it up? So these are some of the challenges that the future will have to look at when we talk about misogyny. And of course, the rights that we have written in the Constitution of Nepal. How is that going to be translated? How is that going to be built up? Why can't we as women also use all these social media platforms to ensure that all these rights are more talked about in a positive note? If there's one little thing that some woman has done wrong, how viral it becomes. But why don't we talk about the positive stories? Why don't we talk about love and peace and security for women? Why do we make all these big, what we call tamashas, about small issues, small mistakes people have made? So what I'm trying to say is the overall, of the overarching atmosphere of the societies, how does it need to improve so that women can be more empowered? We know for sure that if women have money in their hands, the lives of the children, everybody improves. That was the first lesson I learned when Chandni Diju was there as the leader of PCRW. She called me for a meeting and she said, "You come and listen to this." So I was like, very naive. I knew nothing about Nepal. I was only very busy in Kathmandu and wherever I went to study. And that was the first time I heard about how women not only change their own lives, but change the lives of everybody, the whole community, if they have money in their hands, if they have resources. So that lesson is still as active, still as relevant, still as real as it was 30, 40 years ago. But why aren't we really paying heed to it? Why aren't we making women's lives easier? That's a challenge I have in my own office. Now we have 25% women staff. Most of them are young. They're going to get married. They're going to have women. They're going to have children, which we should encourage. But where is the space for their creches? Where is their right for safe motherhood, for really a wonderful upbringing for their children? I talk in Singhadarbar, there is one creche right next to my ministry, but it's so crowded that the women from my ministry won't have access to that. So these challenges are still out there. We still need to look at, of course, we are one of the few countries which is looking at gender budgeting, thanks to UN Women. But really, are we really putting our money where our mouth is? That is one of the questions we need to raise. And I'm so happy and thankful that you all are doing this report. Because, it's very good to be in the government and pat yourself on your back and say, "You're ramro bhayo, tyo ramro bhayo, we have done a lot." But it's good to also hear criticism. Because if we don't hear criticism, then how do we improve? If we don't get feedback, then how do we know which are the places where we need to make new policies? So I'm very thankful for both these groups. And I remember right at the beginning when these two groups are formed, there was so much tension. But now all of us have grown up and we realize that there is great value in both these reports. And I really thank everybody who's been involved in it. And this is one of the few countries where everyone will agree not to agree, but still sit at the table. And we must not lose sight of that. Because there are many countries where people will disagree and they won't talk to each other. That is not going to help any societal progress. And I'm very happy to also say that when we go to the UN, we stand tall as a country where gender rights, where human rights are guaranteed for everybody. And in many multilateral meetings where people are, different government representatives say, we will take a lead in this, we will take a lead in this. So in BIMSTEC, I said, we will take a lead on human rights. We will take a lead on women's rights. But I need support from all of you to ensure that agenda is really floated at BIMSTEC, because most of the agreements there revolve around economic change. But we cannot have economic change until we have social change. So, and I think that is one of the key messages. And we cannot have social change until we have equality for women, equality for all the minority groups. And I think that is a message that Beijing Plus 30 is giving out very clear and loud. And I'm very happy to be part of this. And thank you for inviting me. And I'm so sorry I have to run, because I know there are going to be some excellent deliberations even after that. But being a woman foreign minister is a challenge, because then people are looking at me even more, like this is a challenge for anyone, but if you are a woman, then it's more of a challenge, because you are being looked at very, very microscopically. So thank you for bearing with me, and all the best to all of us. This is going to be a very